Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 of Geoffrey of Monmouth. The enemies being now entirely reduced, the king summoned the consuls and princes of the kingdom together at York, where he gave orders for the restoration of the churches which the Saxons had destroyed. He himself undertook the rebuilding of the metropolitan church of that city, as also the other cathedral churches in that province. After 15 days, when he had settled workmen in several places, he went to London, which city had not escaped the fury of the enemy. He beheld with great sorrow the destruction made in it, and recalled the remainder of the citizens from all parts, and began the restoration of it. Here he settled the affairs of the whole kingdom, revived the laws, restored the right heirs to the possessions of their ancestors, and those estates whereof the heirs had been lost in the late grievous calamity, he distributed among his fellow soldiers. In these important concerns of restoring the nation to its ancient state, repairing the churches, re-establishing peace and law, and settling the administration of justice, was his time wholly employed. From hence he went to Winchester, to repair the ruins of it, as he did of other cities. And when the work was finished there, he went at the instance of Bishop Eldad to the monastery near Caer Caradoc, now Salisbury, where the consuls and princes, whom the wicked Hengist had treacherously murdered, lay buried. At this place was a convent that maintained 300 friars, situated on the mountain of Ambrius, who, as is reported, had been the founder of it. The sight of the place where the dead lay made the king, who was of a compassionate temper, shed tears, and at last enter upon thoughts what kind of monument to erect upon it. For he thought something ought to be done to perpetuate the memory of that piece of ground which was honoured with the bodies of so many noble patriots that died for their country. For this purpose he summoned together several carpenters and masons, and commanded them to employ the utmost of their art in contriving some new structure for a lasting monument to those great men. But they, in diffidence of their own skill, refusing to undertake it, Tremenus, Archbishop of the City of Legions, went to the king and said, "If anyone living is able to execute your commands, Merlin, the prophet of Vortigern, is the man. In my opinion, there is not in all your kingdom a person of a brighter genius, either in predicting future events or in mechanical contrivances. Order him to come to you and exercise his skill in the work which you design." Whereupon Aurelius, after he had asked a great many questions concerning him, dispatched several messengers into the country to find him out and bring him to him. After passing through several provinces, they found him in the country of the Geoesians, at the fountain of Galabes, which he frequently resorted to. As soon as they had delivered their message to him, they conducted him to the king, who received him with joy, and being curious to hear some of his wonderful speeches, commanded him to prophesy. Merlin made answer, "Mysteries of this kind are not to be revealed, but when there is the greatest necessity for it. If I should pretend to utter them for ostentation or diversion, the spirit that instructs me would be silent, and would leave me when I should have occasion for it." When he had made the same refusal to all the rest present, the king would not urge him any longer about his predictions, but spoke to him concerning the monument which he designed. "If you are desirous," said Merlin, "to honour the burying place of these men with an everlasting monument, send for the Giants' Dance, which is in Ciliaris, a mountain in Ireland, for there is a structure of stones there, which none of this age could raise without a profound knowledge of the mechanical arts. They are stones of a vast magnitude and wonderful quality, and if they can be placed here as they are, where on this sort of ground, they will stand for ever." At these words of Merlin, Aurelius burst into laughter and said, "How is it possible to remove such vast stones from so distant a country, as if Britain was not furnished with stones fit for the work?" Merlin replied, "I entreat your majesty to forbear vain laughter, for what I say is without vanity. They are mystical stones of a medicinal virtue. The giants of old brought them from the farthest coast of Africa and placed them in Ireland, where they inhabited that country. Their design in this was to make baths in them, what they should be taken with any illness. For their method was to wash the stones and put their sick into the water, which infallibly cured them. With the like success they cured wounds also, adding only the application of some herbs. There is not a stone there which has not some healing virtue. When the Britons heard this, they resolved to send for the stones, and to make war upon the people of Ireland if they should offer to detain them. And to accomplish this business, they made choice of Urfa Pendragon, who was to be attended with 15,000 men. They chose also Merlin himself, by whose direction the whole affair was to be managed. A fleet being therefore got ready, they set sail, and with a fair wind arrived in Ireland. At that time, Galeomanius, a youth of wonderful valour, reigned in Ireland, who upon the news of the arrival of the Britons in his kingdom, levied a vast army, and marched out against them. And when he had learned the occasion of their coming, he smiled and said to those about him, "No wonder a cowardly race of people were able to make so great a devastation in the island of Britain, when the Britons are such brutes and fools. Was ever the like folly heard of? What are the stones of Ireland better than those of Britain, that our kingdom must be put to this disturbance for them? To arms, soldiers, and defend your country while I have life. They shall not take from us the least stone of the giant's dance." Urfa, seeing them prepared for a battle, attacked them, nor was it long ere the Britons had the advantage, who, having dispersed and killed the Irish, forced Galeomanius to flee. After the victory they went to the mountain Kilarius, and arrived at the structure of stones, the sight of which filled them both with joy and admiration. And while they were all standing round them, Merlin came up to them and said, "Now, by your forces, young men, and see whether strength or art can do the most towards taking down these stones." At this word they all set to their engines with one accord, and attempted the removing of the giant's dance. Some prepared cables, others small ropes, others ladders for the work, but all to no purpose. Merlin laughed at their vain efforts, and then began his own contrivances. When he had placed in order the engines that were necessary, he took down the stones with an incredible facility, and gave directions for carrying them to the ships and placing them therein. This done, they with joy set sail again to return to Britain, where they arrived with a fair gale, and repaired to the burying place with the stones. When Aurelius had notice of it, he sent messengers to all parts of Britain to summon the clergy and people together to the Mount of Ambrius, in order to celebrate with joy and honour the erection of the monument. Upon this summons appeared the bishops, abbots, and people of all other orders and qualities, and upon the day and place appointed for their general meeting, Aurelius placed the crown upon his head, and with royal pomp celebrated the feast of Pentecost, the solemnity whereof he continued the 3 following days. In the meantime, all places of honour that were vacant he bestowed upon his domestics as rewards for their good services. At that time the 2 metropolitan sees of York and Legion were vacant, and with the general consent of the people, whom he was willing to please in this choice, he granted York to Sanox, a man of great quality and much celebrated for his piety, and the city of Legions to Dubricus, whom divine providence had pointed out as a most useful pastor in that place. As soon as he had settled these and other affairs in the kingdom, he ordered Merlin to set up the stones brought over from Ireland about the sepulchre, which he accordingly did, and placed them in the same manner as they had been in the mountain Kilarius, and thereby gave a manifest proof of the prevalence of art above strength.